So the results, they're finally here. What do I even mean by that? I first want to clarify though, before I explain that, nothing I say is financial advice. It's just my opinion, perspective, and my outlook when it comes to this. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Now, if we take a look at it, what you'll see on the screen is some voting results, right? In which case, remember in my last video, Dominic Williams, I talked about how he, as the founder of Dfinity, made out a poll, basically, or made a poll, I should say, on a post on X, and he was wondering, when it comes to multi-dex, which is their upcoming DEX, or should I say an exchange that is decentralized, they're wondering what should the capitalization be when it comes to the spelling. I am not joking, because when it comes to multi-dex, he was wondering whether or not it should be all capital letters or basically not, right? He was wondering if it should be like an M as the capital and then followed with lowercase, or just multi-dex all in capital letters. Now the community has spoken. Granted though, only around 1,000 individuals voted when it comes to this poll, so it wasn't really anything that garnered too much attention, but at the same time, the results showcased that 76.9% of individuals who did vote did prefer multi-dex being all in capital letters. Only 23.1% preferred multi-dex with M as the capital letter only and the rest being lowercase. This is pretty surprising to me. The reason why I say that is because if we take a look at very famous dexes out there, like let's say in the case of Pancake or Jupiter or something like that, it's not all in capital letters to my understanding. The reason why this would be kind of bizarre, some people like to say, is because this is a little bit unusual, right, to see when it comes to the space of a dex. So seeing that many people actually prefer that spelling, I guess, variation, it did surprise me, but you know what? If people do prefer that, I understand it. And the reason why I can understand it to a certain extent is because initially when Dominic Williams was talking about multi-dex, he basically made posts about multi-dex, but it was like all capital letters. So I think a lot of people got accustomed to that. They got kind of used to that spelling. And then, of course, when he made a poll, I think a lot of people just preferred the original way that it was supposed to be. But I actually preferred it the other way around. I preferred it to have M as the capital letter and the rest being lowercase. The reason why is just because, again, it kind of blends in with a lot of other dexes out there in terms of how it's usually spelled. Now, people like to say, but if they made it all capital letters, it's going to make it different, right? It's going to differentiate it from the other dexes out there. But I don't think it needs that to differentiate itself, in a sense where we already take a look at when it comes to multi-dex, it's multi-chain. So hence the name, right? Multi-dex, I would assume. And then also on top of that, Dominic Williams recently revealed some pretty key details when it comes to multi-dex that I think is already impressive in and of itself. It doesn't really need any sort of differentiating factor when it comes to how it's spelled or something like that to make it be different. It's already quite different in a sense where if we take a look at it, for instance, multi-dex runs on the Internet Computer Network. So we gotta let that sink in. That straight off the bat is already very different from a lot of other dexes out there, right? So it doesn't really need all capital letters to differentiate itself. No, I don't think it needs to do that. But, I can't fault them if they do want to go that route. However, at the same time as well, also multi-dex runs on an Internet Computer Cloud Engine. So if we think about it, that right there, I mean, that in and of itself is already such a major differentiating factor. They don't need to make it all capital letters, but at the same time, understand if they want to go that route. Now, when it comes to the results, basically, does it automatically mean that Dominic Williams is going to choose multi-dex all capital letters? Well, not to my understanding. I think this is just more so kind of testing out the waters, right? He's kind of testing out whether or not the community likes it all capital letters or not. So I think this was more so kind of a test. It's kind of like, the A/B testing. He was kind of doing that. But it's pretty telling in a sense where it seems like for the individuals that did vote, they really do prefer it all being capital letters. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much what kind of lettering they choose, even though I did prefer the option that got the least amount of votes, which was multi-dex with the M in terms of the capital letter in the beginning. I did prefer that. Even though I do prefer that, I think what matters at the end of the day is the fundamentals, right? So as long as the fundamentals are good, We haven't seen a full-on launch yet, but if we do see one, as long as the fundamentals are good, then I won't complain about how it's spelled, basically. It's like whatever, right, to me. Now, I would also like to mention some people in my previous video, they gave like option C, which I think they should have done this as well. I think Dominic Williams should have probably asked for another alternative, which is some people did prefer like multi-dex. So multi being like M as the capital, but then it's followed with dex. But then of course the D is capitalized. So they kind of preferred, that as a hybrid option where it's not all capitalized, but then it's not only one letter that is capitalized, if that kind of makes sense. I thought that was pretty cool too. But yeah, besides that point, I wasn't such a fan of it all being capitalized like that. But hey, if they go that route, it is what it is. But yeah, besides that point, people like to tell me, well, this is so irrelevant. Well, we have to think about this. Literally, multi-dex is going to allow Dfinity, I think, in my opinion, by extension, to kind of somewhat directly compete with like a Pancake, a Uni, a Jupiter, and all this. And the reason why I say that is because literally multi-dex is a dex. So when it launches, I get it. Some people like to say, well, it sounds kind of silly. How can it compete with some of the bigger projects out there? I'm totally aware of that because multi-dex, when it launches, it would be so new. It would launch in 2026, basically, if they launch it this year. But at the same time, it's going to try to compete with some of the bigger players out there, which I can't fault them. I mean, they got to start somewhere. So at least they're doing this, or starting now, I should say, or at least looking to start now, because they already launched the test mode, so to speak. I know they referred to it as the play mode, but who's going to call it that? I mean, it's basically the testing mode, but yeah, besides that point, well, I guess Dominic Williams did refer to it as that, but besides that point, the testing mode is out right now when it comes to multi-dex, I would say, and we haven't seen, again, the full on launch yet, but once it does, then we can further evaluate it, right? But it's going to take time though, because when there's multi-dex and all this, when it first full on launches, I should say, it's probably going to take quite a while. Probably going to take, some time to kind of fix all the issues if there are any, and to kind of smooth it all out, because we saw Caffeine AI, for instance, one of the flagship products of Dfinity, even that also had improvements along the way. We're seeing version 3 as of right now. So when it comes to multi-dex, I don't think it's going to be perfect initially, but at least they got to start somewhere. And they got to start, I think, pretty soon, because the faster they launch it, the better it is in terms of figuring out all the potential issues. So yeah, when it comes to this, it's been a pretty quick update, but the internet computer is still at around $2. Not really much to talk about there when it comes to this, but the only thing I can talk about pretty much as of right now is the recent voting results, which I think could influence sort of the way multi-dex is designed, right, moving forward. Because again, if Dominic Williams, in his mind, if he's thinking that, hey, you know what, all capital letters, it sounds cool, maybe it's gonna change the whole aesthetic and the whole user interface when it comes to multi-dex. Who knows? So yeah, I think it's a pretty kind of important sort of post, even though not very many people participated in that specific post. I think it could, somewhat affect the way multi-dex is designed later. So I thought it was pretty crucial, and that's why I wanted to make a video on it. Granted, we don't know for sure as of right now what he's really going to do in terms of the lettering, but at the same time, seems like a lot of people do prefer the all capitalized version. I don't, but you know what? To each their own, right? Some people do like that. But yeah, I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward when it comes to the internet computer. So I want to say thank you so much for watching.